produced by devices like cell phones may cause cancer and other neurological diseases. Do you agree? The vast majority of people in this sample responded with yes. Do you think that the results might differ if the researchers had simply asked, do you think cell phones cause cancer? Certainly. If a leading researcher says it's true, people are likely to agree with that result. Most of us certainly don't know enough about electromagnetic fields to draw a conclusion on our own. Who's going to disagree with professors at a leading university anyway? If that's not convincing enough, allow me to lend an example from my own life. When I was in 4th grade, if someone would have asked me, do you believe in Santa? I would have answered, yes. But when my mom casually asked, Emily, you don't still believe in Santa, do you? Not only did she basically tell me Santa wasn't real, I felt as though I had to answer no. Sometimes bad statistics are produced by the numbers themselves, rather than the collection methods. Careful, exploratory data analysis must be done in order to choose appropriate ways to report summarized data. Consider the following true statistic. The average starting salary of geography majors graduating from the University of North Carolina in 1986 was $250,000. Why are UNC geography grads making so much money when nationally graduates in geography are starting at $22,000 a year? Michael Jordan earned his geography degree this year and went on to make over $700,000 in the NBA. You see, the average is computed by taking the sum of the data values and dividing that sum by the number of data values. This measure of center is highly affected by outliers, an individual value that falls outside of the overall pattern of the data. While the average is accurately reported, the statisticians should have used the median or the middle value to report the average starting salary based on the presence of extreme values. Technically, the information gathered in these examples are accurate. They're just misleading to someone who reads the reports and is unaware of the methods used for gathering or analyzing data. Be a skeptic and be educated so that you aren't a victim of bad statistics.
So that's kind of things I wanted to point out. We're going to be talking today about means and medians, averages, things like that. So, and then we're also going to talk about measures of variation as well. Today you have, nothing due today, sorry. Tuesday you have Connect Math 3.1 due, which I think shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's averages, things you've seen like a lot of times, since middle school, all you guys are familiar with most of them. The only new part would be weighted means, and there's a handful of problems on that, which we'll go over today. Also on Tuesday, there is Project Part 2B due, which we'll spend a little bit of time going over that. But one of the things is that, if you have other, then you shouldn't have like 20% of your data in other. It should just be like 10% or less. Other should be like a small category. So if you have a lot of things that are kind of loose spots that don't fall into anything else, maybe you have two types of other, like other indoor activities, other outdoor activities, or other Bay Area cities, other California cities, and then other non-California, something like that. So you have kind of multiple specific kind of others, if that makes any sense. That would be a little more logical, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then next Thursday you have Connect Math 3.2 due as well, which we're going to go over today. Oops, where's my board? So first things first. Oops. Be resilient, right? Hang in there. If you did not do well in the first exam, it's only 13% of your grade. And remember we talked about AB 705 at the beginning of the semester, which kind of the idea behind that is that for people, rather than have people take algebra and then take statistics, rather than people go straight to statistics without taking the prerequisites, with the idea that if you take this class, even if you don't pass it the first semester, it'll prepare you better for passing it the second semester than it would than taking algebra would the first semester and trying to pass it the second semester. So if you did not do well on it, try to do well on the second exam because it's completely different material. But even if you don't pass the class, work as hard as you can to learn as much as you can this semester so that next semester you can do well and pass the class. And I know I've told you guys, I can't even count how many students I've had, so many that have gotten a D with me the first time they've taken it and then gotten a B the second time around. It's super common. Don't forget, Jim Hannon is over there for tutoring. And if you want extra credit for that, you should sign up for NMAT 202C. Then just sign in when you get there. It has a CRN number of 33393. So that's the CRN to sign up for. It's free, non-credit tutoring, and you just drop in whenever you want to. So there's no grade for it, there's no charge for it, but in order for us to be able to record that, and also we get some money from the state when you do go in there, a little bit, not very much, when you go in there and use that service, then we need to be able to track that. So that's why we have a CRN number for that. That is totally free. First thing is, he doesn't always know who you guys are. We get priority. My students get priority because he's doing this for me. So while he will help other students, if you let him know that you're here and you're with my class, he'll kind of bump you up higher on the priority list, if that makes any sense. So if he's helping somebody, he'll finish with them, but then he'll help you next before he helps somebody else. So let him know when you get there, check in with him. He's a older, kind of balding, white-haired gentleman. He's the one that I argue with who's convinced me to do things differently in statistics because he's the statistician from Lawrence Livermore Lab. And then also he said, come with questions about analyses or concepts you've already considered, not just answers to specific problems. So in other words, give it some thought and think about, try to understand as much as you can about the problem so that, because he wants to help you understand the problem, not just solve the problem, right? So if you struggle with it a little bit on your own first, then it makes it easier for him to kind of take kind of how far you've gotten and build upon that to kind of give you the pieces you need to understand it. Otherwise, he'll try to explain the whole thing to you, and that just takes longer for you and him, and it's just more painful. So it's a lot easier to just kind of give it some thought and try to figure some things out on your own first. Okay, great. Smart Shops. There's some upcoming Smart Shops. This first one, the FAFSA Dream Act one, is really, really useful. Most people need to fill out the FAFSA when they go off to four-year colleges. You can also fill it out here because you may get promise grants. A lot of people are actually qualify for promise grants without realizing they do. So if you fill this out, it's kind of a pain in the butt to fill out because there's all these questions that you're not quite sure how to answer it. Right? I've had people ask me, friends who are going through it with their children, and it's just confusing. So if you go there, they'll kind of help you answer all your questions, and it makes it really easy as opposed to this big, laborious process. So students I've gotten really good feedback from students about that one. And then also there's a Stat Graphing Calculator Part 1 workshop going on as well next week. That's really good because starting this chapter, you're going to need your TI 83 or 84 calculators. We're going to start using those. Also, in the back, there's this little STEM workshop ones if you want to know the Smart Shops that are specific to STEM. You can just go ahead and grab one of these in the back. All right. So that covers most of those announcements. And then let's talk a little bit about Project 2B. So let me switch over to here. Here's the project. How do you find it? You go to Canvas. So if you go to Canvas, Part 1 is where you find the link to our class master file. I'll try to also put that up on Part 2 as well. But then if you slip down to, where is it? Project Part 2. Project Part 2, this one right here, this is where you get this handout right here that I'm going over, the Project Part 2B data cleanup. So this basically, the first part shows you some stuff to help you familiarize yourself with Excel. Excel has columns that are each a different letter, and then it has rows that are numbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like, for example, this cell here is I, column I, and row 17. So this is I-17. That's the name of this cell right here. What else? Talk about other parts later. You're going to be entering data and other information into the cell. So I'm going to kind of give you some directions. So kind of try to match this up if you can. Editing, escape. So first off, go to our master class. So here's our master class file. And someone give me, well, I'll just pick one. So say you pick major. Here's one. Major. If major is one of the ones, you've all picked 4 questions. Right, bless you.
Thank you.
You have 4 questions you took a picture of, right? 1 for group A, 1 for group B, 1 for group C, and 1 for group D. Right, so group A was like 1 through 8 or something like that, and group B was like 9 through 15 or whatever. So say your group A1 was major. Then you would click on the B itself. If I left click on the B, and then I do Control C, then I can go to a new spreadsheet. So File, New, open up a new one. Don't try to save it into mine. You would need your own. Then you can go over here. I might stick it in B. If you go Control V, it'll paste it in there. Okay? And then maybe one, let's see, I don't know. Let's pick some other ones. Eye color, sure. Or sport. Control C. Go over to your new one. Pick a spot, Control V. And it'll pop it into there. And maybe you want tall. Control C. Control V. And the last one, I don't know. Who's that? Control C. Control V. Okay, everybody all right with that part? After you do that, you need to make a copy of this. So this is your sheet 1. It's kind of the original data you've picked out. So don't mess with this one. Mess with everything in a separate sheet. So we're going to copy the whole thing. How do you copy it? You click on this little box here in this corner between the A and the 1. If you click on that one, it highlights everything. And then you can Control C that. And then for Excel, you'll have a little spot to add a sheet. For this one, you hit the plus here to add a sheet. And then you can just, I think from this top thing, you can Control V as well from there. And that'll paste it in there. So now you have 2 sheets that are exactly the same. And I would say mess with stuff in sheet 2 so you don't have to recopy them. All right, so a couple things. One is I can overwrite this. If I want to overwrite this with something, I can type stuff in and it'll overwrite it. If I hit enter or left arrow down or right arrow down, or right arrow or left arrow, it'll enter that spot. If I messed up and I want to undo it, this little undo button is your best friend right here. So if I hit undo, it'll put it back if I screwed something up. You'll also notice up here, this is the formula area. So if it says business management because I'm on business management, if it went up, it goes to what's your major. Right? So whatever is in that box is what I click on. So if I want to change something in there and I want to say somebody misspelled something, like, I don't know, psychology, I can just click in there and change that around. You can also hit escape. So if I start messing with something and realize, oh wait, I missed some keys by mistake. If I hit escape, it kind of kicks me out of wherever I am. So if you haven't hit enter yet, you can get rid of that with the escape key. Let's see. Good. We talked about cutting and pasting. Great. Right. You want to have, ideally, at least 5, no more than 12 categories. So if you have things like major, you're going to have a lot more than 12 categories. You've got to combine some. So that's kind of what we're kind of looking at. Your other category should not have more than 10% of your data in it. So maybe you might have a couple different others instead that kind of specific. But let's see, let me show you how to sort. So let me pick all of these categories. I'm going to left click drag and grab all of them. And it's a little longer than I thought, there's a lot of them. And then you go to data and sort range. And then I have a header row because I picked the titles, so click on that one. And I want to sort by major, great. Or you can choose to sort by flavor, favorite, shoe size, different things. So you'll sort different times. So here I'll sort all of them that way, and I can see how a bunch of them are grouped up. A lot of nursing, a lot of neuroscience, neurobiology. Maybe I make those all neuroscience. Oh, there's another microbiology, mechanical engineering, not a lot of math, finance. So maybe I combine biology with some of the, or maybe I count some of these other ones as microbiology, maybe I count that as biology. You can kind of use your own judgment a little bit here to sort of figure out. So maybe I make this biology, and change that one. And then maybe I want this one to be neuroscience also. Right, so if I click on one, see how it's just a regular white arrow there? You haven't seen the white arrow? If I move it over here, and now I get the crosshairs, that little cross with the crosshairs like that, the black crosshairs. If I left click and drag, I can copy it, it'll copy over. Do you see how I copied that up? So you can copy that up, or if I wanted to copy that down, I could drag down and change all those to that one. Oops, that's wrong. Just undo it. Good? So those are some of the tricks you can use to kind of sort through that. And again, I think you have to sort of pick through, at some point maybe you do math. There's not enough math, so you might make that, STEM, other STEM, right? So everyone kind of sees. So I'm not going to mess with sheet 1, but I'm just going to make this other STEM. Other STEM. Everybody on board with how to... Does everyone understand the idea? I need to have no more than 12 categories. Right now I have way too many. Right, I've got industrial engineering, information tech, interior design, journalism, liberal studies, other STEM, mechanical engineering. I have like way more than 12. Way more than 12. You need to have 12 or less. Everybody understand that? Which means I need to group some into groups. That makes sense. All right. And then correct any ones that don't make sense. And then you need to, if you want to center them, I don't know if you want to, I wouldn't bother with that one. But if you want to change the width of the cells, so you can see more, like here the engineering is cut off. If I go up here, and I move back and forth, see the arrow goes to this little left-right double arrow. If I left-click drag on that one, I can make it bigger. So that's useful. Left-click drag, okay. And then also grids, counting the number of entries we have. Okay, so we need to do count A, count, and min-max. So here, we got into the bottom, below, give yourself a couple of rows below, and every formula has to start off with equals. So equals, and see where it says count A, just look at this part right here, right? Equals count A, and then what you've got. So equals, oops, escape, equals count A, parentheses, and then drag the ones you want, left click drag. All the way up. But I'm not going to count the top one because I'm not counting him. And then you can kind of see where it comes in right here. It's counting from B2 all the way down to B142. And I'm going to close the parentheses and hit enter. And then there's 141 of those. You can drag this over as well. The issue is that I stopped here and these ones go on. So it means you probably need to edit those. It should really end at, looks like C145. Do you guys see the 145 there? So you can go in here up to the top and edit it up here in the formula spot and make that 145 instead if you like, and that would work. And it even highlights it. This one, these ones are not alphabetical. So everyone understand these are alphabets, right, letters? So these are count A's. These ones are just regular counts because they're numbers. You don't want to count the any words in there. So this should be changed to, instead of count A, it should say count. And I will check that. So take out the A, and then I need this to go to, so you can see the orange part where it goes to. I need to go down to 145. So I'll change that. And then you can see it shows highlighted what it's counting. Good? So far? Everybody all right with that? And I can drag it this way. Oops. Oh no, drag it that way. And then we also need min and max. We don't do min and max for these because can you have the minimum of like red, orange, yellow, green, blue? No. Minimum and maximum for numbers only. So you need to do min and max for these two. And it's the same exact thing. Equals min, parentheses, and then grab them all. Enter. Good. So the minimum of all those is 20. The max equals max, parentheses, drag them all. Or you could, since you know what they are, you can type them in. You know it's D2 to D145. And that gives you the max. So you can see up here it says min and max equals min and equals max. All right, any questions on this? All right, at the end you need to save the file and email me a link to your Google Sheet or email me your Excel file. Right. Let's get back to our laptop. Chapter 3. So it's going to be, today we're just going to look at measures of center and measures of variation. So first let's look at measures of central tendency. How about, Noe, go ahead and read.
What do we mean by average? Mean, median, mode, mid-range, weighted.
That's it? Yeah. So these ones you guys are pretty familiar with. This one might be kind of new for people. It's just, a weighted mean is just, it's a mean, but we'll talk about later. That's the one that might be unusual. Measures of central tendency. These are things we've talked about last class. Megan, go ahead.
Statistic is a characteristic or a measure obtained by using the data values from a sample. A parameter is a characteristic or a measure obtained by using all the data values for a specific population.
Right. So remember on the exam, we had a bunch of people, we did an experiment, we put them in two groups, and then they put their hands, how long could they hold their hands in ice, in cold water? And we said the average time that they held the ice in the water, was that average time of a whole population, or was that average time of just the sample? Sample. So is it a statistic or a parameter? Statistic. Make sense? All right. Good. General rounding rule. Prab, go ahead.
The basic rounding rule is that rounding should not be done until the final answer is calculated. Use one of the parentheses on calculators or use of spreadsheets helps to avoid rounding errors.
Yes. So here, if you find the mean, so the general rounding rule is don't round along the way. Round at the end. So add up all your stuff first, or do all your other things first, with lots and lots of decimal places. So anything I give you on an exam or in class, keep lots of decimal places, and then at the very end, when you have your answer, then round it. Okay, only round at the end. There might be a few homework problems in my math lab. Most will be like this, but there might be a few that specifically say to round to 2 decimal places at every step. And those ones you need to round at every step. And actually what I do is I try it both ways. I try rounding at every step, and if that doesn't work, then I try not rounding until the end, and one of those should work. Yeah.
Is there like a general rule for if you have like a third or 2/3, how many decimal places you should use?
Lots?
There's
Yeah.
no-
No. I would say in general, I would use fractions and I would try to avoid rounding at all. But if you have to, then at least give yourself 5 decimal places. So yeah, I would say generally speaking, give yourself 5 decimal places along the way and you'll be in okay shape for this class. But yeah, so here's an example, right? If you round along the way, so you add those 2 and then you round to the nearest 10th and then add those, round to the nearest 10th, and keep rounding to the nearest 10th along the way, you're going to end up with, at the end, 4.2, which is wrong. It should be 4.3 because you've rounded off you've lost some of the amounts along the way. Another issue is no parentheses. Right, so here, what's wrong with this? How come, if you average 5s and 3s and 4s, you should get something between 3 and 5. Everybody kind of understand that? If you average a bunch of numbers, you should get a number. The average should be a number at least between the smallest number and the largest number, somewhere in between there. You shouldn't get an average of 18, which is way above any of your numbers. So, what's the error that went on here? Can anybody see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It divided 3.04 by 5 and then
Right, so here your calculator will do the division first, because it's smart, it knows order of operations. It knows division comes first, so first it divides, and then it adds. So the thing to remember is that there are invisible parentheses around your numerator and your denominator. So if this is your problem, divided by 5, then you put into the calculator, you have to put invisible parentheses around the numerator and around the denominator. Well, especially if there's something else in here. So you had 5 minus 1. Because if you don't, it's gonna do the division first and then do all the other stuff. So don't forget that. The easiest way to do it, honestly, so you don't have to worry about this, is just find your numerator first. And write down with like 4 or 5 decimal places, 5 decimal places. And then find your denominator, write it down for 4 or 5 decimal places, and then divide them at the end. Right? So just find your numerator, find your denominator, and then divide them. That's the simplest way to avoid this super, super, super common error that people will make. Okay, let's get to this one. Ian, go ahead.
Mean is the quotient of the sum values divided by the total number of values.
Great. You guys know that, right? Add them all up, divide by how many there are. Keep going.
The symbol x bar is used for sample mean. X bar is equal to x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus xn.
Yep. So in other words, you add up all your x's. These the little 1, 2, 3, that just it's subscripts. So subscripts are like labels. This really could have been like x of Lenny, x of David, x of John, right? It's just we call them x1, x2, x3, just, that's the different x's that we have. Add them all up, divide by how many there are. This symbol is the sum symbol. It means you add everything up. So sum up what? You're going to sum up all the x's. You're going to add up all the x's. Sum, S-U-M, sum, meaning to add them up. You've seen that on your calculator probably. You've definitely seen that in Excel and some other places, that sum symbol. And then N stands for the number of items you have in your sample size. So N is your sample size. Remember that, you're going to need that later. We're going to fill that in. So sum, sample size, and then keep going.
For a population, the Greek letter mu is used for the mean.
Right, so this is mu, just like the Pokemon, mu, right? And it's the same sort of idea, only divide by a capital N because that's the population size. Mu is, it's the Greek letter M, so it's kind of like an M, right? You can write it like that, or you can write it more like a U. Both of those are kind of the extremes, two extremes of what these people might write mu. But you can kind of see it's sort of like an M and sort of like a U at the same time, which is convenient because it's MU, U. All right, everybody all on board with this part so far? Mu, X bar. Who's ever heard X bar before? You are going to know it intimately well by the end of the semester if you don't. X bars are sample size. Sample size is, sample mean is X bar. We use it all the time. N, the sample size, you're also going to know intimately well because that comes up over and over again. N is a sample size. X bar is your sample mean. Mu is your population mean. Rounding rule, Rob?
Rounding rule, mean. The mean should be rounded to one more decimal place than occurs in the raw data. The mean, in most cases, is not an actual data value.
Good. That means if I have all of these numbers here, and I find the average of them, then I should say they average out to like, I don't know, 3.176. I should round this to one more decimal place than my original data is in. So since my original data has one decimal place, when I average them, my sample mean should have 2 decimal places. Okay so far? All right, good. Here's a sample. Police cars, right? Add them all up, divide by how many there are. And it has one more decimal place. It has 1 decimal place because my data has no decimal places. Okay, you guys do the mean part on lab problem 1.